Welcome to Smash Fiction, the podcast where we pit two or more fictional characters against one another in a battle of strength, or wits, or a degree of magical prowess that could potentially make one's bibliophilia legitimately creepy, and see who would win. This week, Hermione Granger versus Willow Rosenberg. Things are starting to get bad at the newly rebuilt Sunnydale High, and Willow Rosenberg isn't sure what to do about it. It's bad enough that she's still recovering from the emotional trauma of losing her girlfriend Tara, and subsequently going on a badass dark magic rampage, but now the First Evil is back, Giles is trying to train a bunch of potential slayers, this asshole named Caleb is trying to kill a bunch of potential slayers. It's all just really fucked right now. And that would be fine, except for the fact that Buffy Summers, Willow's best friend and the actual Slayer, has completely vanished, and none of Willow's magic has been able to locate her or bring her back. Xander thinks she's just hiding out somewhere to sulk about losing that vampire hunter modeling competition to the dude with the trench coat and sunglasses, but Willow knows Buffy would have returned by now if she wasn't dealing with something serious. Willow is concerned for her friend, but she has other things to worry about, namely the fact that Buffy's absence basically makes her the person responsible for figuring out how to deal with the First Evil. And as always, Willow eventually finds her answer in her favorite place on Earth, the Sunnydale Library. What Willow has discovered is the essence of the most powerful banishing spell she's ever heard of. Powerful enough to lock the First Evil away for good, or at least until Buffy gets back. The only problem is that Willow can only find references to the spell, not the spell itself. And she quickly learns why. The spell, apparently known as the Rite of Phantomus Zonus, has only been used once in human history. Willow's eyes light up as she reads about how the legendary Library of Alexandria, which was thought to have been destroyed, was actually sealed away from humanity for its own protection via the very spell she seeks. And sealed inside it, along with several other magical spells and items of great power, is the Rite of Phantomus Zonus itself. Willow immediately begins to step up her researching game. She has a library to find. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Hermione Granger is experiencing similar frustrations. She and her friends have made almost no progress when it comes to defeating Lord Voldemort. They had really been hoping that doctor guy Neville pulled out of the Sorting Hat would help, given that he called himself the Sorcerer Supreme, but that dude got roasted by the Death Eaters just like everyone else. Ron is optimistic, but doesn't have any real ideas, and Harry has been weirdly withdrawn ever since he figured out how to tune their magic radio to pick up broadcasts from the future. Hermione doesn't know what he's been listening to, but he keeps giving her and Ron dirty looks and muttering something about everybody but him being able to smash fiction or something. It's almost as though this scenario takes place after episode 55, but before episode 26. Anyway, clearly Hermione is going to have to take charge of this situation herself, and there's only one place that has always given her the answers she needs: the Hogwarts Library. Of course, Hogwarts is under control of the Death Eaters at the moment, making a return to the school one of the more dangerous things the trio has ever done, but with some help from the scruffy-looking Hogshead bartender and a surprise assist from secret subversive guerrilla warfare librarian Madam Pince, they managed to gain access to the library with no one the wiser. I mean, it's not like anyone is really using it. While perusing the restricted section, naturally, Hermione finds the same information as Willow, except that in Hermione's book the spell is called Zo-Negativum, and also resolves to find the Library of Alexandria, acquire the spell, and banish Lord Voldemort for good, or at least until all his Horcruxes can be found and destroyed. Both witches set to work, having unknowingly entered a race against time and each other. First, they must use their beloved libraries to find as much information as possible on the Library of Alexandria. They will both eventually discover the spell that provides access to the library, though access only to one person per casting. But which book nerd bibliophile will find it first, learn more about what lies inside the library, and discover the location of the banishing spell? And which mistress of magic will incapacitate the other and claim the arcane prize when they inevitably come into conflict? I suppose I could just look up the answer in this here Book of Prophecy, but it'll be way more fun to hear four people, almost as nerdy as these characters, try and conjure up a convincing argument, while I, Miles Schneiderman, serve as your detached and mystical judge this week. Arguing for Willow Rosenberg are Dan Mulcairn,
Prince of Night, I summon you. Come fill me with your black naughty evil.
and Liz Logan.
Wingardium Leviosuck.
That was beautiful, deadpan. And representing Hermione Granger, once again returning to Smash Fiction, they are the hosts of the Gameable podcast, Chris Newton.
And this one time at Quidditch camp.
And Katrina Ernman Newton.
Honestly, do you even read?
In order to determine who goes first, I sent both teams into a magic library run by this old guy named the Page Master and told them to bring back the best selection of charming anthropomorphic genre books. Team Hermione returned with young adult series featuring vampires, ghost-written celebrity memoir, and written adaptation of popular movie, which I don't know what you guys had to go through to get these, but I'm not checking out any one of them, much less pushing the wise old librarian, who is definitely also the Page Master, for all three. That's just depressing. Fortunately, Team Willow showed up with old school military sci-fi, new wave anthropological sci-fi, and thinly veiled political statement masquerading as sci-fi, and they also threw in comic book with sex and swearing for good measure, so I will be taking all of those. Mr. Sounds just like Doc Brown, and Team Willow will be going first. Team Willow, please tell me you have something more substantial than what was written on the note you slipped me earlier, which simply read, "She's Jewish, Miles, give her the win so you don't disappoint your family even more."
Oh, God.
Miles, props for the Page Master reference. That was
Thank you.
that was something special.
Thank you.
I'd also like to think I just threw like a bunch of Neil Stephenson books at you and said, enjoy this or something.
I'm okay with it. I am okay with it.
At first glance, you might think, wow, Willow and Hermione are just so similar. Buffy is to Willow and Harry is to Hermione. Sorry though, Willow is just so much more than Hermione. And it's not just her increasingly rare locks of red hair. No, she's so much more than that, more than that, more than that, more than that. While both women are rescued quite a bit in the beginning of their respective stories, by the end of Hermione's, she becomes even more dependent upon Harry Potter and following his lead, rather than establishing her own. Willow completely deviates from Buffy. She becomes more and more increasingly strong, and even by the second season, she's able to restore someone's soul. While meanwhile, Hermione can barely cast a Patronus spell against a Dementor because she can't think of strong enough happy thoughts in her third season of sorts. In the fifth season, Willow is able to damage the goddess Glory, something no one else had been able to do by that point. Oh, and then she fucking resurrects Buffy, another person, again. I mean, just think about all the baddies Willow has had to face. All Hermione has had to worry about is one guy with some shitty cronies and whether or not Ron will become jealous while she goes out with the Bulgarian badass. All Willow needs to do is absorb Hermione's magic, as she did with a warlock, of course, who's named Rick, and Giles, and she will become imbued with more power than Hermione can hope to deal with. Now let's consider the research needed to be performed. Willow is going to get it done way quicker than Hermione. Both of these women are known for diving headfirst into arcane research, but have you ever seen or read about Hermione using a computer? Nope. Willow's abilities in the first two seasons demonstrate a high-level aptitude for computer technology, so right off the bat, before even casting a spell, she has a gigantic leg up over Hermione in this match. She will be finding results way faster than her, who will probably spend most of her time just trying to find the right book, and that's only if she has access to the correct books. Meanwhile, Willow will have not only found the book, but analyzed its contents as well, since it's probably all online, because everything is online now. Willow has access to tons of books already, through Giles, the Watcher's Council, the Magic Box, and her own web of magical contacts, and summon demons. Plus, as a computer hacker, Willow is also extremely adept at solving puzzles and logic problems. So considering this is a mysterious-ass library, you bet she'll be able to solve any mysteries within it. Remember, a lot of the quote-unquote puzzle solving Hermione does is very reliant upon Ron and Harry being there to back her up. For example, when she got petrified and left the note with pipes on it, wouldn't really have done much good had Ron and Harry not been friends with her and understood her methods because, she's fucking petrified now and no use. She only works in the context of when there are people who understand her and how she works or researches. She's more interested in being a filthy enabler and getting other people to succeed than succeeding on her own. And now let me double down about how shitty Hermione is. Hermione needs to learn intricacies of casting a spell. First, making sure she has access to her wand, how to move it, how to make sure the words she says are just right. She does excel at nonverbal magic eventually, but considering the huge amount of concentration and experience it needs, and the fact that experienced wizards still use a wand, it's silly to think that her nonverbal spells would be as powerful or as easy to cast as ones with a wand. We all know how often the Potter movies use poor spellcasting techniques to comic effect. Additionally, most spells used against opponents in the Potter world revolve around either disarming or silencing because of how big a part wander-sizing and verbal commands play in casting powerful magic. Given that a witch like Willow needs neither of those things to cast powerful magic, that's like 2/3 of Hermione's spellbook made worthless. Hermione's greatest strength, of course, is her ability to absorb knowledge. But that doesn't really always help. Most of the time, you need to practice with a spell. You can't just read about it. What if she had gained all her knowledge from Gilderoy Lockhart's books? A man whom she was obsessed with and ended up being a total wanker. For example, she thought she could kill a troll by reading about it, a mistake that would have killed her had Harry and Ron not been there. When they were attacked by Dementors, even though having read about them, she and Harry both failed to cast a Patronus. Meanwhile, Willow can cast whatever spell she wants, no matter what the shade of her deep, dark, broody high school persona is that day. Which brings me to my next point. Hermione is strongest when she's in her magical threesome. That was for you, fanfics, and Meg and Bob. With Harry and Ron. She can hold her own in certain situations, but in big situations, usually not, because that would literally defeat the purpose of Rowling's novels, showing that love and friendship makes everyone stronger. The only reason she was involved in the defeat of Voldemort was because she was connected to the one person that could capitalize upon his weakness. Harry essentially became the chosen one. She's like Hermione the Baptist, I guess. Or Morpheus. She's not always careful either. I mean, when she used the Polyjuice potion, she turned into an even more fucked up version of Conker's Bad Fur Day, and then not soon after became petrified. Then, when given the chance to lead in her 5th year, a chance to teach practical magic, she deferred to Harry. Once again, Hermione the Baptist, always the second fiddle to Harry Potter. You might as well call her Hermione Plotter. At the end of the day, I'll give that the girl could throw a mean straight, Draco. But at the end of the day, when it comes to having magical prowess, it's because she has studied and studied and studied and studied and studied and studied until her eyes cross. Willow is unlike anything she's ever seen. Hermione hasn't had a long time to academically analyze her habitat or her behavior. Most of the situations in which Hermione shines in is where she has had some time to do some light reading and plan. But eventually, Harry is always the one who steps up to the plate when the going gets real rough. And Ron is just Ron.
Liz already mentioned that, in terms of the research angle of this match, Willow goes in with a huge technological advantage. Because of her much better understanding of the library going in, she can easily find the sections with the most powerful tomes of magic. This is another area where she's going to be miles beyond Hermione. We see in multiple episodes of Buffy that Willow is capable of pulling the power and information from a spellbook directly into herself, a process which takes only a couple of seconds, even when used on a whole stack of spellbooks at once. Not only does this vastly expand her spellcasting repertoire and supercharge her with energy, it also makes the pages of the books blank, meaning that any book she learns from will then be useless to Hermione. And when it comes to these two witches actually throwing down, Hermione doesn't have a prayer. Hogwarts may have taught her some rudimentary defensive spells like Stupefy or Impedimenta. If pushed, she can probably manage to muster a blasting curse, although the last time she tried this, she broke the wand she was using in the process, so that's probably not a great tactic. Willow has a much larger variety of much more destructive spells, and once she gets to the state she's at by the end of Buffy, the only beings that can even pose a challenge to her magically are Giles, after he's been imbued with the combined might of an entire coven of witches, or Jasmine, the, godlike being who sought to bring about magical Armageddon in the show Angel. It should be noted, incidentally, that Willow defeated both of these ridiculously overpowered foes in a straight fight, to say nothing of the countless lesser foes she's dispatched with her magic. Willow has shown that she can counter almost any spell thrown at her the first time, and can counter any spell that's been thrown at her before. She managed to grant the powers of the Slayer permanently to thousands of women across the world, a feat which the combined circle of warlocks that created the Slayer lineage in the first place could not have dreamed of doing. When her girlfriend Tara died, she summoned Osiris himself to bring her back. When Osiris refused to do so, Willow blasted him with a spell so destructive that it sent the, God of Death screaming in pain back to the underworld. I won't claim that no one ever managed to get a momentary advantage in a fight against Willow, but by this stage in her career, Willow has become incredibly quick thinking and creative in these situations. When she goes up against the Hell God Glory, she comes with a literal bag full of different spells and switches them up quickly when she sees that Glory is beginning to adapt. When she's trying to kill Andrew and Jonathan in the magic box, she realizes that they are protected from her spells, so she uses a spell on herself to give herself superhuman strength. When Giles holds her still with a paralyzing ward, she mind controls Anya into getting her out. She's constantly using creative thinking and her own vast knowledge of spells to get around seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Think about the environments that these two women grew up in. Both come from magic-rich worlds full of monsters and threats, but Hermione grew to adulthood in Hogwarts, a well-fortified castle covered in magical wards and protective spells with dozens of practiced adult spellcasters watching out for her and her friends. Willow grew up in Sunnydale, a town on top of a literal hellmouth with no supportive infrastructure keeping the baddies away. There were no knowledgeable and responsible adults making sure that the worst dangers were kept away from Willow and her friends. It was up to them to protect the defenseless from the darkness. I don't want to unjustly take away anything from Hermione. It's no small task to be able to stand up to the likes of Bellatrix Lestrange, as Hermione did at her peak at the end of Deathly Hallows. But Hermione wasn't able to defeat Bellatrix, even when ganging up on her with Luna Lovegood and Ginny Weasley. Hermione never possessed the power to burn the world to a cinder, as Willow could have done and nearly did at the end of Season 6 of Buffy. Hell, Voldemort never possessed that level of power. Willow's opposition is infinitely more impressive, to the extent that I was just able to do a rule of 3 joke using the gods she has fought. Hermione has been described as a borderline genius. Willow is a definitive super genius. Hermione has been described as the best witch in her year at Hogwarts. Willow is canonically stated to be the most powerful witch in the Western Hemisphere. I'd bet all the golden gringotts on a win from the witch from Sunnydale.
Well, if Team Willow had any more well-constructed points, they'd be the hat store in Diagon Alley.
Oh, that's very good.
I love jokes about hats.
Which brings me to Team Hermione. Spew forth your arguments and liberate the house elves of logic.
Libraries are the best. I know this, you know this, and Hermione Granger sure as heck knows this. Given the opportunity to find the lost and vitally necessary Library of Alexandria is the adventure Hermione has been waiting for. This is the girl who finds a lost, ancient, powerful magic thingamabob for 3 books running before she's 15. How does she do it? Oh right, she's Hermione freaking Granger, and she overcame a hostile librarian, one Madame Irma jinx you 6 ways to Sunday if you look at a book funny and no you can't eat here and shut up, hints. And physically dangerous environment to become an expert library user while still a child at Hogwarts. Willow, on the other hand, has known nothing but friendly and sometimes flirtatious librarians and has never had a textbook that could literally bite her back. There has never been a day when Hermione has not done the homework. This is to her advantage time and time again in the series. It saves her friends' lives more than once, and her research talents have been used to unearth powerful, either lost, hidden, or otherwise obfuscated items of world-saving importance throughout the series. Whether it's the Philosopher's Stone, the Chamber of Secrets, Horcruxes, Deathly Hallows, or the spell for vengeance by local birds right now, Hermione is the one who has already read the book about it and knows the spell for the occasion. Let's contrast this again to Willow Rosenberg, cramming for the apocalypse in a van on the way to the final battle because all of her energy has gone into making her girlfriend more comfortable. Is it lovable? Yes. Is it the work ethic that gets you to the Library of Alexandria and its magical spells faster than Hermione Granger? No. The place where we see the full power, though, of Hermione's preparation is when the trio leave to be on the run during Book 7. Hermione creates an honest-to-goodness bag of holding, without which they would not have been able to survive. To quote the Harry Potter lexicon, Harry and Ron owe the success of the Horcrux hunt in large part to Hermione's planning and research. Without her, there would have been no clothes, no reference books, no tent, no sleeping bags, no supply of polyjuice potion, no medicines, no extendable ears, no cloak of invisibility, and no background information on how to destroy a Horcrux once they found one. Harry and Ron weren't the only ones she planned for. She was so worried for her parents' safety that she modified their memories so that they would not remember they had a daughter and relocated them to Australia. The trio do leave in a hurry, and as they do, she literally reaches back over her shoulder to summon her already arranged how to deal with Horcruxes and more personal library into the bag of holding she made for this occasion. Did I mention she can apparate? Yeah, she's the only one who passed that test. This means she can teleport where she needs to go, when she wants to go there. Hermione can start with a well-reasoned, sensible search for the library using her vast knowledge on magical places and magical effects to hide magical places, how they're hidden, all the things she needs to know about the spell, in addition to just doing regular old geography and logically considering where it might be following the paper trail. With that in hand, she can then use apparition to do some practical forensics on any likely location without ever having to step foot into an airport. Did I mention she can also just put a port key in her back pocket just in case this doesn't go her way so she can zoop right back to where she needs to be? I really think the Sorting Hat had a heck of a time with Hermione. She's obviously bright enough for the Ravenclaws, brave enough for Gryffindor, and like many Hufflepuffs, she's a really good finder.
To demonstrate how screwed Willow is in a duel with Hermione, I'd like to try a little exercise. Liz, Dan, you guys try to light a bundle of sage before I can say stupefy. You lose. That's probably how... That's probably how Willow's going to lose too, with a single word as silly as it is decisive. But speed is far from the only advantage Potterverse magic has over Willow's Super Wicca. Hermione's spells, which she can cast with a silent flick of the wrist, are immensely more varied and effective than Willow's rituals, which require roughly as much participation, preparation, and time as a lovely tea party. I know what you're thinking. Hermione's just a bookworm, right? Not after book 4, she's not. Apparently, in a total Hufflepuff move, Cedric Diggory left all his experience points to Hermione in his will, because in book 5 onward, she is a badass, routinely taking down multiple experienced wizards in Eldritch battles far beyond Willow's competence, or Buffy's production budget. Hermione's reflexes, mental and physical, are phenomenal. When she throws a curse or counter, it's the perfect spell from among the dozens or hundreds that she's mastered. Did you know that in the Potterverse there's a spell for putting a blindfold on a person in a painting? A specific incantation for making teeth bigger? Hermione's always pulling out some unique spell like that, often in a split-second combat situation, not after half an episode dicking around with the old card catalog. In counter-based dueling, which is what we see in Buffy and Harry Potter, it is all about having the right spell at hand. You have to know it, choose it, and cast it very quickly. That takes broad education. It's not as though there's a compendium of common curses and their counteractions. Oh wait, yes there is. It's called A Compendium of Common Curses and Their Counteractions, and Hermione memorized it. Speaking of curses, Hermione's curses are like my feelings toward Vampire Willow. Weird and hard to deal with. What's going to happen when Hermione points her wand at you? A Confundus charm to make you stupid? A bookshelf behind you explodes? You vomit slugs? Your incisors extend to your chin so you can't pronounce your spells? Better guess quick and guess right, because if you don't, you're done. A generic shield spell cannot stop all those things. And even if it could, Willow doesn't have the mana for that. Willow's best at AD&D style magic. Fireball, nap, repeat. Even as Dark Willow, high on an 8-ball of ill-conceived metaphor, I mean stolen magic, Willow made it through like 3 encounters before she crashed. As original recipe Willow, 1 weak teleport spell gave her headaches for weeks. Meanwhile, Hermione can hex, teleport, and fly all day, drama-free. If Willow tries to go at Hermione head-on, her meter's gonna drop from mojo to nojo real quick. A word about wands, because if I were representing Willow, those are the straws I'd be grasping at. It's true, they're a weakness in theory. Now, never mind that most of Willow's spells require a whole wellness aisle worth of bullshit hippie paraphernalia. Never mind that a wandless Hermione would still have her potions and magic items. Yes, if you could disarm Hermione of her wand, she might lose access to her curses and counters. But Willow can't disarm Hermione. There's a reason Expelliarmus exists. It does something regular telekinesis can't. Willow would need at least a disarming spell, and Hermione was trained to counter those in Dumbledore's army. Even if the disarm worked, Willow's a close-up caster. Hermione would probably just tackle her and grab her wand back. And in any case, by book 7, even Ron thought of carrying an extra wand. You know if Ron's got a spare, Hermione's got a whole pencil case full. I could go on about the psychological factors here. Willow's a needy, erratic, haunted woman sitting on her own personally emotional hellmouth. Hermione, of all people, will have no trouble throwing Willow off her game. I mean, I can think of about 50 ways to distract Willow, and I'm not a sexy genius. Ultimately, though, their relative
don't sell yourself short there, buddy.
No, the eyes have it, but the point stands. Ultimately, though, their relative intellect and drive won't decide this. Hermione's unparalleled mind for magic is, other than performing Madame Butterfly, Willow's worst nightmare, a problem that can't be outsmarted.
Team Hermione, those arguments can only be described as old reliable, by which I mean, of course, a geyser full of fun that goes off at regular intervals.
My burps!
Now get that shield charm up, because it's time for Team Willow's rebuttals.
Okay. Well,
Where
you guys
to
were
even
really
begin, man.
Yeah.
Damn.
You guys were really
beginning.
talking like you haven't seen the last few seasons of Buffy, where Willow goes from a lot of ritual magic and, as you put it, burning sage, to, like, performing full-on evocations like shooting lightning out of her fingertips and throwing fireballs across Sunnydale that home in on a target from there.
Let's nip this right in the bud. This is not Dark Willow. If this is Dark Willow that we're up against, it's not Willow. So we're talking about original Willow, right? As she appears in season 5 and then up to turning dark and then again in season 7 where she can barely do magic for fear that she's going to freak out.
What you're missing about season 7, the reason that she doesn't do magic that much in that season is because they're up against the source, the source of all evil, the thing that predates demons and stuff, who is able to take control of her when she uses her magic. We see in that same season when she goes down to Los Angeles to help out in Angel, that she's able to use the full amount of magic that we saw her use as Dark Willow. The difference is, when she was Dark Willow, she was drawing upon black magic, which is very unpredictable and based on your emotions. By the time season 7 starts, she starts drawing her strength from Gaia, from the earth itself, which means she doesn't run out of MP, and she's a lot more in control of the effects that she creates.
I think the idea that Willow does not run out of MP in Season 7 is not supported. She topples over in ecstasy after her big spell at the end of the season, and we see her visibly struggling in the episode of Angel where she's up against Jasmine. By the way, her magic in that episode is not so impressive. It's the same spell she cast to re-ensoul Angel before, which, by the way, she did not create. That was someone else. And then she also enchants a marble to go break a glass. And that only succeeds because someone distracts Jasmine. The magic level in LA is shaky.
I mean, she still won a magical arm wrestling match against a god, and that spell that you so casually say, like, made her tired, again, that was the spell that empowered 1,800 women across the world with the power of the Slayer. Hermione has done nothing even
Nothing on
approaching
that
level,
scale.
aside from, what was it you said? Oh yeah, putting a blindfold on a painting, or making someone's teeth larger.
There's a trend here. Willow, I would argue, didn't do that. When Willow does really big, important things, she's interacting with other powers. She calls upon Osiris to resurrect someone. She absorbs other people's power to become Dark Willow and ultimately threaten the world by going to the temple of, like, an evil goddess to get her to do it. She taps into the power of the Slayer essence in the Scythe to empower all the Slayers, which is basically just undoing the limitation created by a former generation of wizards. So in all these cases, she's just sort of poking at magic created by larger entities. You can very clearly see what Willow's capable of by herself, and it's the reason that even in Season 7, she never goes to the front line, really. It doesn't work. When it's just Willow, it doesn't work.
You guys keep talking about Hermione. Oh, she's so knowledgeable. She passes all her exams, everything. Well, let's take a look at that very regimented existence Hermione has had. Frankly, her education and training has put her into a box and have limited her ultimate realization to power or whatever. Whereas Willow has had to be creative, learn on the fly, and the fact that she's been able to do that and become so powerful and become connected to, as Dan was saying, those 1,800 women and defeating a god when she's had no formal training and the best Hermione has done is cutesy little artsy-fartsy spells. Give me a break. Willow has been able to do that all on her own practically. So in terms of creatively approaching a situation and, going against Willow, Hermione's not going to have a chance in the world. And plus, if you look at how the Harry Potter books and movies are laid out, they're solving like one big main problem over the course of an entire movie, over an entire book. Frankly, Hermione's not going to have that benefit to constantly, okay, here's one piece of the puzzle. Let me go back to my books. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, here's the second way to defeat this person. Let me go back to my books. Okay. Here we go. That's what happens in every single movie and book.
I've got to disagree here. I think that what we've got in this challenge is find a specific place, find a specific spell, get it, and get gone, which is something we see Hermione do with admirable success. In the battle at the Hall of Mysteries, we see her get into Gringotts, the unbreakable bank run by goblins, using a potion that, yes, takes time, but definitely does the job. And I'm just not as persuaded that Willow really has the advantage on getting to the library. And that is key. It's true, Willow does big, fancy things, but we see Hermione come through with a number of powerful effects, including the Patronus charm, which admittedly takes some time, much like, healing strips of your body being peeled off by slowly thinking good thoughts takes time. And another thing with Hermione is we're missing something from the Battle of Hogwarts, which is, not dying when fighting literal armies of evil, and then going to shatter a piece of skull with a tooth from a basilisk. Hermione's got the stuff. I think you're underestimating her.
The fact that Hermione regularly takes on, mobs of Death Eaters. I mean, Willow, to my knowledge, does not take out, teams of experienced enemy spellcasters who are on her level. Hermione does that casually. I was talking about specific spells just to show, she has obscure spell knowledge. I mean, can she blow somebody up? Yes, she can. Can she knock somebody out? Yes, she can. Can she put them to sleep? Can she mind control them? She knows all the
Sacrifice them all the time.
You just said she takes out mobs of Death Eaters on her own? No, she always has the backup of other people, because if she could do that, she would have had no problem handling Bellatrix Lestrange. Oh wait, she had a problem with her.
Well, in the case of Bellatrix Lestrange, she had Bellatrix's wand and was using it against her. So it was like you're mind controlling someone's friend to kill them. That's the hardest way to do it.
So good
and-
thing I have a character who doesn't need any of those implements to kick Hermione's ass.
Except, like an entire tea shop worth of crystals and whatsits and bells and thingamabobs and, let's have this book here and draw a pattern on the floor and make sure we said the right words in the right order before we can even get started.
Yeah, if we're not talking about Dark Willow, it's props all the way down. It's like, it is ritual magic. And that's why, again, in season 7, when we see like this version of Willow, she doesn't stand and fight spellcasters. I mean, she casts one shield spell, I think, against the Grimslaw, which is a minor monster, and almost gets taken over by the first, because she still doesn't have that level of control. I mean, she went to see the witches in Devon, but first episode after she comes back, she accidentally turns herself and her friends mutually invisible. She's highly unstable.
All right, Team Willow certainly deserves an O on their rebuttal owl. But let me tell you something about Willow. She's a loser, and she always has been. People picked on Willow in junior high school, up until college, and now also on this podcast, because it's time for rebuttals from Team Hermione.
I gotta first say about the research, because I think I can't let it go unchallenged that Willow is somehow going to beat Hermione at research. First of all, the fact that Willow can use the internet does not make her a superhero. So can Hermione, she just doesn't, because the things that she researches, as with Willow, aren't really on the internet. That's why we see Willow constantly poring over dusty books. And by the way, when we do see her use the internet in season 7, it's hilarious. She's trying to figure out what's happening with the Slayer's axe, and it's like a webpage called The History of Axes. Like, she's Googling axes. It's ridiculous. How can Willow possibly match all the worldwide culture of wizarding, all their great libraries that Hermione can teleport to instantaneously whenever she wants to read up on centuries of wizarding knowledge? How can Willow compete?
I don't see a way.
First of all, you say that Hermione can use the internet, and that's not true, because the Hermione we're talking about is from the 7th Harry Potter book, which wraps up in 1998, and the Willow we're talking about is from 2003. So you might not think that those 5 years is a long time, but it's the difference between using one of those like free 1,000 hours of AOL CDs with a 56K dial-up modem and being able to jump onto a wireless broadband connection and begin Googling your way to answers. And there is actually, we see in Buffy, a sort of magical subculture that exists on the internet, which Willow is going to be able to access. But just as Hermione can teleport to various libraries, which I think is a little bit of a specious argument because we only ever really see her researching in one library, which is the Hogwarts library, Willow is just as capable of teleporting as Hermione is, and she can go to all sorts of places, which Liz mentioned in her arguments. There's the Sunnydale Library, which Giles has filled with books. There's like the Watchers Council. There's all sorts of demonic and supernatural contacts that she has throughout the world. There's any number of places she could go to get information.
The judge would like to make it clear that Dan's mentioning of dates is not Smash Fiction canon. This is happening at the same time.
Okay.
Hermione could totally handle this being in different times, but you know why? Because she was allowed to use time control and a freaking time machine when she was 13 because she needed to do that much learning.
And she had to give it back, too.
When she was
It was
done.
probably for the
She
best
couldn't handle
for
it.
everyone.
It's a good thing that Willow didn't get her hands on a time turner. That's all I'm going to say.
Hold on.
Willow learned how to fold time in season, 2 or 3, when she brought her vampiric self from an alternate dimension. Like, that's a spell she knows, dude. That's a spell she can just do.
You talking about the time turner brings up a point that I was thinking of earlier. Here we are, these two characters in an unfamiliar place, trying to find an unfamiliar spell, doing all their research. So far, you've given me 2 examples of where Hermione has had her hands on something that was unfamiliar to her, and she couldn't handle it. One being the time turner, she had to give it back at the end because it was just too much. It affected too many things. And then she couldn't handle someone else's wand. I mean, how is she supposed to handle something that's completely foreign to her?
Oh my god, so many jokes.
In Harry Potter, it is canonical that almost no witch or wizard handles another witch or wizard's wand well. It's a part of them. It's very personal. It's not a thing that you just share. It's like a toothbrush, only more powerful. Also, Hermione willingly relinquished the time turner because she needed to simmer down with all that homework, and she had achieved a double heist preventing the unjust death of one Sirius Black and Buckbeak the Hippogriff, a thing we're all grateful for, and which is, kind of not what they gave her time magic for. It's a big deal. They do need to be cautious about it in the wizarding world. I don't think so.
And
Can't handle it. She put it to great use and then made responsible decisions because she's a responsible person, unlike some people who routinely nearly destroy the world.
Because that's how powerful she is. Hermione doesn't approach that level
Hermione
of
has
power.
too many rules. She has to follow too many rules. She won't use certain spells. She weak.
Can I get a clarification from the judge? If Willow forgets what she's doing and destroys the world, does she win or lose?
I mean, I would say we all lose.
Because that's what's going to happen if Willow tries to use the tactics they're talking about. The teleportation that we saw as Dark Willow is not a power that Willow can just whip out whenever she wants without the fear of losing control or tapping into a larger power.
Anya mentions that she mostly flies because witches do it that way because that's how they roll. It's demons who have true teleportation.
Notably, she turns into Dark Willow to go kill a guy, and even though she's doing a fun-looking teleportation storm effect, when she needs to go kill him, she hitches a ride with Buffy and Xander because it's faster.
I really gotta clear this up because you guys are totally wrong. She uses all sorts of evocation when she's not Dark Willow, most notably when she goes to fight Glory in Season 5, which is way before Dark Willow ever rears her head. And now she's, again, pulling her power from the Earth, not from black magic, which gives her the same amount of power, but a great deal more control.
I think that is absolutely incorrect. Because as we see when she comes back, I mean, healing the little wounds in her belly when there was a monster stripping flesh off them. I mean, she's exhausted. She's sitting in bed meditating, lacking the strength to go on to heal these tiny wounds. That is a world away from what Dark Willow did, because Dark Willow was running on all the dark magic books pumped into her body, plus Rack, plus all the power of all the witches in Devon. She doesn't have that, and I think we're never told that somehow there's this magical solution where Gaia now pumps her up to that same strength. If she did have that kind of power, wouldn't she be blasting Caleb with lightning? Wouldn't she be teleporting all over the place in Season 7?
No, because again, she was up against the Source of Evil, and the Source of Evil had the power to take control of her when she would use spells like that. That's why she had to limit herself to just the one spell, which was granting this power of the Slayer to all those women. She had to choose the time to do it, and she chose very well.
Well,
So
since
what you're
that's
talking
her
about is
big bad in this challenge, right? That's the thing she's sealing up, so she can't use all that big-time mojo or she's gonna go, whoa, evil, destroy the world mode.
Yeah, I want to clarify. So you're talking about a speculative version of Willow that has the same kind of control that we saw from Willow in something like Season 5, but has the full power of Season 6, but doesn't have the restrictions of Season 7. But that Willow never really appeared on screen, as far as I can tell. Even though this match takes place during Season 7, you're saying that's the Willow that we're facing.
As a point of clarification, Miles, my understanding was that we were using Willow as she appears at the end of Season 7. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so that would mean she has the total spell knowledge that she has absorbed throughout her career, she is drawing power from the Earth, and she no longer has the Source of Evil predating upon her, waiting for her to let her guard down by casting a spell. So essentially, yes, Chris, she has all that stuff.
It is speculative, and I think we never see her have that dark power. I mean, you're asserting that the Earth gives her that, but I don't think there's any evidence for it.
Hermione's pencil book of wands is speculative, you boob.
Okay. Oh my god. This is definitely the darkest, witchiest battle we have ever had. Yes, Headmistress Maleficent. Sorry, Headmistress Maleficent. This is definitely the second darkest, second witchiest battle we've ever had. Spells are flying like lightning bolts, including spells that create actual lightning bolts, but wait, why is nobody taking 3d6 damage? Oh, I get it. That's not a lightning bolt. It's the lightning round!
What?
The lightning round.
That was thunder.
Also, lightning bolts deal 8d6 damage in 5th edition D&D.
You know what? That's fucking OP, dude.
Oh, it's super OP. Fireballs are even worse, but I digress.
Anyway, as Willow and Hermione throw curse and counter-curse at one another, both suddenly notice a book that has been thrown to the floor by the chaos of the duel. The book lies open, and written on its pages, because that's how this works, are the words to the very spell both witches have come to find. Willow and Hermione simultaneously break off their battle and dive for the ancient tome. 4 hands wrap around it as each woman wrestles for control. Their combat has suddenly become physical. One might call it a wrestling match.
Ding
Ah!
Their grappling sends them stumbling across the room, where they crash through a pair of wooden doors and find themselves in some kind of walk-in dresser. Still they fight, fur coats and ball gowns tumbling around them, and as the scuffle takes them deeper, both witches register a thought somewhere in the non-combat part of their brain. This really is an unreasonably large wardrobe. And they go on thinking that until they spill out into a strange and alien winter landscape,
Oh,
the only
boy.
trace of normalcy being the street lamp shining above. Its light spills onto the book, revealing that the pages containing the banishing spell have been torn out during the fight, and are presumably now blowing in the wind somewhere in the land of Narnia. Y'all thought I was going to do wrestling at you, weren't you?
A little bit. You kind of
I already
zagged
got
there
my
at the end.
name.
I'm still going with it. She's still a wrestler. I don't know. That's our strategy in Narnia.
That's what we call a tease when one accidentally writes the word wrestling into a lightning round argument.
Yeah, I'd like to say that because they went through a wardrobe, they both ended up in singlets on the other side of the wardrobe.
I mean, yeah, sure, absolutely. Although women in wrestling don't usually wear singlets, Dan. It's not sexy.
Well, it wasn't a women's wardrobe they came through, was it?
I mean, it was Are wardrobes gendered?
Move on!
All right, now, normally, I would present the four of you with a contest of some kind, or at least a hilarious list of scene-specific questions. But, seeing as I've got the GM of Extraordinary League, the star player of Extraordinary League, and fucking gameable here, this lightning round is going to be a little bit different. Being the rational people that they are, Willow and Hermione agree that they should work together to find the spell. For weeks they quest, encountering frightened fawns, generous beavers, Santa Claus, and even Lion Jesus himself. Eventually, their journey takes them to the Palace of Jadis, the White Witch, its courtyard decorated with the stone remnants of people who failed their saving throw versus petrification. Jadis herself now stands before them, the torn spellbook pages in her hand. Sneering at the two would-be witches who have come to challenge her, Jadis gives Willow and Hermione a choice. If one of them will betray the other and lay her at the White Witch's feet, Jadis will give the traitor the pages and allow her to return home. Alternately, they could simply continue their original battle right here, with the winner going home with the pages and the loser remaining as Jadis' prisoner. Or, the White Witch proclaims with glee, do neither. I turn both of you to stone, and I use the spell to banish Aslan forever, ensuring that Narnia remains in a state of always winter, and of course, never Christmas. So, in the spirit of game masters everywhere, I ask you, what do you do? Team Willow went first in the main round, so Team Hermione, you have the initiative.
This comes down to something, actually, a very wise man on Smash Fiction once, when he was representing Hermione, mentioned that she is an amazing judge of character. And that is true. Hermione's always immediately on to whoever, whether that is Voldemort himself, whether that is Umbridge, whether that is how Harry is feeling and why he's doing what he's doing. After making her way through Narnia, Hermione has absolutely pegged who and what Willow is. That is what's happening here. And she knows that even in Season 7, Willow, when shit's going down, when she's under pressure, she's going to make the wrong call. She's going to go for the power, and she's going to make the compromise to do it. Because she cares about her friends in a selfish way. That's who Willow is. So she knows what Willow's choice is going to be, I think. Hermione, though, I think is not going to betray Willow. I think
that's not how Hermione rolls.
But she is going to try to find a clever way out of this. I think she knows that Willow's going to try to betray her and get the spell. And so I think what she might do is possibly make a duplicate of the spell. She has a spell for that. Gemma knows she can make duplicates of things.
They used that with the locket so that Umbridge would not realize that they had stolen it from her office to destroy the Horcrux. So that's something she could definitely do. I think that's probably going to be her move. Misdirect.
Yeah, it's exactly what we've been talking about. She has a much broader spell knowledge than Willow does, and she can read people. So what she's going to do is duel Willow. She's going to pretend that she's trying to win, but is actually creating a duplicate of the spell and replacing it with a fake. Let Willow think she's won, since Willow's not going to kill her unnecessarily. Mm-hmm. And then that's it, because Willow is not immune to being tricked,
or
as we see many, many times.
Probably have to come back here later and make sure Aslan's okay.
There's a whole sequel. I mean,
and because Hermione cares a lot about the innocent and the downtrodden, and there's some shenanigans, you know? And also, I mean, there are just so many reasons for Hermione to come back to Narnia.
Yeah, you thought house elves were, treated badly in Hogwarts. You should see what the White Witch is doing to them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, Hermione now has, as soon as evil is resolved in one place, she's got another place to come back to.
Okay, that was Team Hermione. Team Willow, it is now your turn.
Okay, so here they are in this unfamiliar land, and they're questing together. Hermione's this frumpy wizard girl. Willow's this also frumpy wizard girl. And I think the exact opposite. The exact opposite is going to happen. I think Willow cares so much for her friends, and she's an outcast. She can clearly see Hermione's kind of the same way. Hermione's feeling the same way. And they're going to become BFFs, and they're going to have a ball of fun. And back to my previous point of Hermione the Baptist, Willow is going to become the Chosenberg, and Hermione is gonna run support for her. And when they get to the White Witch, they're going to work together, and Hermione is going to be her filthy enabler self and like take a petrification spell because she's got lots of experience with that, and that'll leave Willow open to grab the spell book from the clutches of the White Witch.
Liz, I love how you just, like, you told this story about friendship and working together while at the same time managing to talk as much shit about Hermione as possible.
Yeah, and it'll all end by Hermione sacrificing herself and Willow seizing power. It's a beautiful story.
I agree with Liz up until the very end. Because I totally think you're right, Liz. Like, I think that when they're traveling together, they're really going to get to know each other. They're going to see the similarities in each other that are in themselves. And they're going to become really close and really connected. And then they run into the White Witch. And the thing is, between the two of them, Willow has experience being a leader. You know, we see this anytime Buffy leaves town or dies. Willow's the one who takes over leadership of the Scoobies. And at the beginning of season 6, when Buffy is dead, we see that Willow is guiding the Scoobies through battle telepathically, by sort of telepathically leading them and instructing them. And so when the White Witch offers this ultimatum, she very quickly telepathically communicates some instructions to Hermione. Then she performs upon Hermione the same spell that she performed upon Glory in season 5, which teleports her away, but it makes it look like Hermione was destroyed in this, like, giant explosion, basically. So Willow just waves her hand, Hermione vanishes, the White Witch believes that Willow has killed Hermione. And then Willow begins to turn on her charm, because, you know, Willow's used to seducing other women. And it's been a long time since the White Witch has seen any action.
Again, this is for Megan Bob.
Oh my god.
Yeah, well,
Right,
we have to channel Megan Bob if she's not going to be here. So she begins to sweet talk the White Witch. She begins to get in very close to her. And just when the White Witch lets down her guard and puts down those papers, Hermione uses Accio spells and gets them. And as soon as those papers are away, Willow obliterates the White Witch with a storm of magic. And that, my friends, is teamwork, because friendship is magic.
There were so many jokes in that. I thought you were going to say pull her pants down and then ass.
I was trying to toe the line, Liz, but thank you for taking a diving leap over it.
You know, Bob's not here.
So funny.
Kit's not here. Liz somehow neglected to make this sexy in her portion of the lightning round. I figured we were past the danger zone. But Dan, of all people, had to drag us back down. No, it was beautiful, Dan. I love it.
Well, thank you.
You are never out of the danger zone shipping Willow Rosenberg. She is the free square on your shipping bingo card.
Right.
It works with anyone.
Everyone.
Thank you for that, all y'all. I'm going to have to go find the answers to this match. I'm going to go read some, and after I'm done reading, I'll be right back. And you guys can not read and talk instead of reading.
Well, thank you guys for coming on the show again. This is the first time that you haven't done anything Disney related.
I know.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, geez, I feel bad. I feel like I've become Dark Willow. I feel like I feel like I argued really hard, and now I feel drained. I love you guys. I love Willow too.
Yeah. And I mean, look, any way this goes, it's gonna be fine. I honestly believe that, but you guys are also
Chris
wrong,
doesn't.
so it's fine.
Chris has
It's
been
fine.
stressed out about this all week.
Oh,
I
yeah?
have heard nothing but how Hermione can do this and Willow can't do that, and how Giles isn't even a wizard for like the last 7 days.
I was basically LARPing the descent into madness, I think, to better understand Willow.
And it was driving me crazy. It's like, okay, fine. Magic is magical. I'm sure it will be fun to be on the podcast. I'm gonna go to work now, baby. I love you.
I was wondering why you kept posting those pictures on Twitter of you wearing that black wig and those big black contacts, Chris.
Yes, by all means, follow us on Twitter and see those pictures.
Yes, yep, which totally, definitely exist.
I will say, I did not anticipate the technology angle. That was a clever move, guys.
Well, I mean, that's what she does for the first, 2 seasons, basically. I mean, she falls in love with a demon robot over the internet, so...
True. Oh my gosh, I forgot that.
I thought of the technology thing, and I did see that the episode with the Scythe with her on bargain basement Googling for it, which I thought was hilarious. I don't know. I'm not into season 7 of Buffy very much. We watched enough of it for this, for sure, but yeah, I don't know. Did you know that Scythe made an appearance, like a cameo appearance on Once Upon a Time?
I did
No,
not
but-
know that.
Yeah, Rumpelstiltskin has it.
So, Chris, obviously you're a bit of a Buffy fan. I'm curious as to what your favorite season was.
You know, I was thinking about that a little as we were rewatching these episodes. I feel like, for me, just about the point where you've got Oz in the mix, like, not because I particularly like Oz, but like that's sort of how I think of that time period. That's where I really was into it. I feel like I liked that Cordelia who started to develop some depth, but she hasn't left for Angel yet. You've got Oz in there. You've got characters kind of beginning to develop into what they're going to be, but it hasn't gotten grim yet. Like, I don't know if you've had this experience, but when you go back to do research on Buffy and you just plunk yourself down in the middle of a random episode, like late Buffy, it's just miserable. It's like everybody is crying, everybody is upset.
Oh yeah,
It's
season
just
6 in
draining.
particular is a real dark period.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
you know,
so
once more
harsh.
with feeling notwithstanding.
Yeah.
I read an article once about how Joss Whedon isn't really a feminist,
Mhm.
and and how one of the major points they brought up in that article is that everybody, and I'm not saying I agree, but that everybody talks about Buffy and how like feminist Buffy is, but Whedon really seems to love that camera shot of the girl like curled up and crying.
I think Whedon is an imperfect feminist. He tries, and sometimes he gets it wrong. You know,
Right.
that's just kind of what it is.
Aren't we all imperfect feminists?
Yeah, I feel the same way about late Buffy, and especially like in season 7, the feminist aspect of it. I feel like there's a little bit of overcompensation going on there. Like, I think earlier Buffy actually works a lot better when the plot isn't about this group of amazing magical women and how much better they were than the evil magical men. And then here comes Caleb. It's just like it's all an on the nose version of what Buffy did better earlier.
Yeah, they definitely doubled down in that last season. You're right about that. They're like, oh, well, we got to really nail this theme before we go off the air.
Yeah.
Quick, let's make our subtext text and say
Yep.
it real loud like.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm back.
Nailed it.
Welcome back.
Chris and Katrina, it is as always wonderful to have you on, and as always, you don't make it easy on your opponents. Of course, Dan and Liz, an experienced and dare I say legendary team on this show.
Oh, go on.
No, I'm always legendary, but not in the best ways.
Liz the Legend Logan?
Pretty much.
I love it.
Oh,
Okay,
Triple L.
that's
Move
that's
over,
a thi-
Vin.
Yeah, that's
Fuck you,
That's
Triple
what
X.
your singlet.
Yeah.
That's a thing now. Liz the Legend Logan is
Triple
a
L.
thing. I had a hard time with this one because I think both sides came up with some really good arguments. First of all, when it comes to the research, I think Willow does have a technological advantage, and I think that Dan and Liz did a good job of kind of reinforcing that point. I think what it ultimately came down to was the points about Willow's creativity and experience in actual fighting versus Hermione's flexibility and speed and reflexes, the sheer breadth of what she can do and how quickly she can do it. The question of Dark Willow was very interesting. A lot of the times when we're judging these matches, we have to put aside what we ourselves think about this material and these shows and these characters. Having instantly stopped watching Buffy the moment Angel came back in season 3, I don't know the answer to the question about whether or not Willow in seasons 5 and 7 is similarly powerful or even near the same level as Dark Willow is at the end of season 6. I'm not entirely sure either way about that, but I am convinced that Willow is extremely powerful and is extremely creative. Hermione's points, though, about preparation are extremely well taken. I think what Hermione has going for her in this match is that she is intelligent and prepared, and she comes in with a plan. In the end, I have to give Chris and Katrina their first loss on this podcast.
Yes!
Oh, congratulations.
Finally!
Especially,
Triple L. Fuck you.
especially the lightning round. I thought you guys did a really great job. I did take that a little bit into account in this instance because I loved what Team Willow came up with. But I was also thoroughly convinced just that Hermione, for all her preparation, is not prepared for what she's going to be dealing with in the form of Willow Rosenberg. So congratulations, guys. Good job.
Ugh.
And good job to both sides.
Yeah,
Well done.
guys, that was
GG.
so much more intense than I was anticipating.
Oh, it was about as intense as I was expecting, but I have been living with Chris's preparation, and I listened to this podcast. I knew there was going to be yelling, along with so much thinking.
Chris, Katrina.
Thank you guys so much.
I'm so glad you guys came on. And this, we should also say, was a match that you guys had suggested way back when you first came on.
Oh,
And,
yeah. I forgot. This was a gameable suggested match.
Yeah,
That's
it was.
cool.
We thought it would be a tough fight and an interesting one, and it was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, if you want to hear what we do, we're from the Gameable podcast. Right now we're talking about Saturday morning cartoons and role-playing with their characters and settings. We've also done Disney and Pixar in the past. If you're interested in that, then you can go to gameabledisneypodcast.tumblr.com. That's where you can find all of our episodes. And you can also follow us on Twitter at Gameable Podcast if you want news about the show and updates as new episodes come out.
And you can find me in the hole in the ground that I will be in after researching for your podcast.
Yes,
We're
both
looking
Kit
forward
and
to
Colin
having you.
have been on talking about shows that they love. Miles is going to be on soon, not talking about a show that he loves, shall we
For
say.
some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, I specifically asked you to watch Inuyasha, and so the results here today shouldn't have surprised me.
Oh, no. Had nothing to do with that, I assure you.
Oh, hi, everyone.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
We got our YouTube channel up and going. YouTube makes it a little bit easier to share episodes with friends who might be reluctant to download a new podcast, or even like they're totally new to podcasts, download a podcast app. So you can be like, hey, listen to this thing. Oh, look, I just typed it in and it's playing, so you have to listen there. I also just wanted to let people know I have started my DeviantArt page. If you would like to see fan arts from Kit, there's going to be a lot of Smash Fiction and Extraordinary League fan art. You can find me at dreadcthulhu at deviantart.com. That's DreadKithulhu.
Yes, and if you guys haven't seen the illustration that Kit made Liz for Christmas of Dante enjoying Lunchables whilst the rest of the league looks on, it is a thing to behold.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Getting those pepperonis just right. Thank you to Cosplay Fiend and Jeffrey Ketchum for retweeting about our YouTube. Thank you to Florian, William Cady, James Weaver, and the Politipop podcast for either tweeting about us or just retweeting some episodes. I also just wanted to mention that Vander Turner requested Ace Rarak, Demi-Lich Pet Detective. So that fan art needs to happen. Little Kipapeo reblogged our YouTube channel, thank you. And Sid Rabbit Blog reblogged Baldur's Gate versus Dragon Age. Thank you for all the shares.
Yes.
And I think we have some reviews.
We do. We have 2 new reviews.
Nice.
So this first one comes to us from Edath55, I believe, is maybe how that's pronounced. It is titled, Intended to Write Review for 8 Months, Kept Getting Distracted by Smash Fiction. And this is 5 stars. I'm not exaggerating when I say that I have started to leave a review 8 or 9 times, but decided to go listen to the next episode instead. The core Smash Fiction podcasts are must-listens for any pop culture nerd, but it was when I started the Extraordinary League monthly entries that I realized I was listening to some of the greats of podcasting. There is more delightful insanity on Smash Fiction than any podcast I have listened to since Welcome to Night Vale. How would Hannah Montana survive a twisted version of the Hunger Games? Which Nicolas Cage is most powerful? What would an evil undead Lunchable look like? These are just some of the life questions that you can expect to receive definitive answers for on Smash Fiction. Thanks for the endless commute entertainment and keep up the great work.
No, that's a really
That's
good review.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Being compared to Night Vale is a
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
pretty good
Yeah,
compliment.
that's some high praise indeed. And then the second one is from Mike Booch, and his review is
Oh,
titled
my booch, yeah.
Like Nerd Porn, and this is another 5 stars.
It's like a nerd sex movie, right, Liz?
It's like a nerd sex movie.
A sex movie.
The nerd in me loves the scenarios that play out in Smash Fiction. My time spent commuting to and from work, cooking, and running errands is filled with listening to hypothetical battles of wits, brawn, and other specialties between fictional characters, all narrated by the Smash Fiction team. Whether you know the characters they're debating about or not, it's always a fun time. I feel like I'm one of the group as I listen to their inside jokes and hilarious rapport with each other. The debates are so good, I often have trouble judging which of the characters should win. They even convinced me that Batman could lose to Dr. Doom,
No.
while I am one of the biggest Batman fans out there. Pause for
Doom!
Doom.
No!
There we are.
They didn't even let you pause.
I know. This is one podcast that will always have my listenership for as long as it runs. I've said this before, but their constant delving into the details of my favorite forms of pop culture motivated me to make my own podcast too. Keep up the great work, Smash Team. Thanks to you guys and to everyone who rates and reviews us. It really helps us get seen, and that's always appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.
There's really only one thing to say to that review, which is... Shark! Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Smash Fiction. Next week, we will be releasing the 15th episode of Extraordinary League, and the week after that, James Bond versus Jason Bourne.
Smash Fiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman, with logo design by Colin Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod for our theme song, which is called Hitman. You can find his work at www.incompetech.com.
You can follow the Smash Fiction podcast on Twitter at SmashFicPodcast and search for us on Facebook and Tumblr.
Subscribe on iTunes, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
Hey, Katrina. Jokes about hats are the tops. Ugh.
Go away. Go away. That was like way worse than mine, and mine was awful.
I'm gonna go take a shower. You guys go on.
Oh, I like Willow.
I do.
Cut that.
All right.
Hey,
And the struggle.
it was a good segue.
It
Dan,
was a segue.
Fuck you, Dan.
So that's a segue.